at Thomas Jefferson's Poplar Forest.
I'm sorry, can you speak louder or no?
Oh, yeah, I can speak louder. Okay, so I'm Karen Warren. I am the museum shop manager at Thomas Jefferson's Poplar Forest. That was Thomas Jefferson's retreat home in Forest, Virginia. It's about an hour and a half from Charlottesville, from where he lived at Monticello. Poplar Forest was Jefferson's retreat home after his retirement from public office. He would visit there 3 or 4 times a year just to get away from the busyness of Monticello. He would have people coming up to the house, peeking in the window to see the former president, because they didn't have Secret Service back then, so anybody could just come up. I think there was a lady that knocked on his window so hard it broke the window. And then also, when people would come to visit him, they could stay anywhere from 2 weeks to 6 weeks. So he had to have somewhere to get away. So he inherited Poplar Forest from his father-in-law, his wife's father, in 1773. He did not start construction on Poplar Forest, though, until 1809. And that's when he started going there, just to get away from it all. Poplar Forest was where Jefferson could just relax, be himself, and like he says in this quote, just be in the solitude of a hermit. He very much liked his personal time. He was kind of a very quiet person and liked the solitude of a hermit, which is where Poplar Forest was where he could do that. He also said that Poplar Forest was the most valuable of his possessions. And the reason was not only because it was a private place for him, but also because it was designed from ideas that Jefferson had collected from various places and people just through the years. He was a self-taught architect. He studied the designs of Renaissance architect Andrea Palladio. And Palladio designed Italian villas that consisted of, as you can see here, there was a main house in the middle, wings on each side of the house, and then there were pavilions attached to the wings. So what Jefferson did, Jefferson had a need for balance and symmetry, and Palladio's designs satisfied that need. As I mentioned, he started construction on the house in 1809, but he used the landscape. He was like a landscape architect. He used the landscape to help design his Italian villa. So you see here the main house is in the middle. It's octagonal in shape. Octagon was Jefferson's favorite shape. There's a service wing on one side, and the balance for the service wings is a row of paper mulberries. This picture was taken in the winter, so you can't really see the trees too much, but there are a row of paper mulberries there to balance the wing. There's no record that he ever intended to make a second wing, so we just assume that the paper mulberries were the balance for that. And if you can see on the side of the wing and the paper mulberries, there's 2 mounds on each side. Those are from dirt that were dug out from the south lawn, and those mounds represent the pavilions. So can you kind of see his Italian villa here that he's designed for himself? And beside each mound is a privy, octagonal in shape. Again, the octagon was Jefferson's favorite shape. And this just kind of gives you just so you can see the angle of the octagon again, just another angle to see the house as an octagon. So the interior is 4 elongated octagons that surround a cube room. The cube room is 20 feet by 20 feet by 20 feet, and it has a skylight in the top. And there are bedrooms on each side, a parlor in the back, and then 2 small chambers that are separated by a walkway, a hallway in the front. Now in the basement is the exact same layout, except there is a large wine cellar in the middle of the basement because Jefferson was a wine connoisseur. Now the service wing or the wing of offices, as Jefferson called it, consisted of 4 rooms. There was a spinning room, a kitchen, a laundry, and a smokehouse. Now, the wing of offices is covered by a terrace roof, which was Jefferson's invention. He designed it so he could walk out on the terrace and engage in nature, as he said. He said he and his granddaughters would sally out with the owls and the bats for their evening exercise after dinner, and they would do that on the terrace roof. Now, Jefferson had modern features besides the terrace roof. Now, while he was minister to France, he noticed that some houses looked 1 story in the front, as you see here. It just looks like a 1-story house, yet houses were 2 stories once you got in the back. And that was a modern design at that time for houses. So other modern features include a skylight in the dining room. His skylight was 16 feet by 2.8 feet, and Jefferson said it was the largest in Virginia at that time. So other modern features were glass doors throughout the house. He had a lot of doors throughout the house. I think he had 35 doors in the house. And there were also alcove beds. That was also a French-inspired design. And then also a modern kitchen. That was yet another French-inspired design. And Jefferson, he often came by himself with his manservant Burrell Colbert, but he would bring his granddaughters Ellen and Cornelia, who were older teenagers at that time. And this is where he could just actually be a grandfather and just enjoy his granddaughters, and they would just have intimate conversations. I think he would ask them about things they were reading, because the girls liked to read. They were very smart also, like Jefferson was. And he would also just tell them stories like a grandfather would to his grandchildren. And so even though Jefferson was not always at Poplar Forest, it was a working plantation. It covered 4,819 acres. And the main crop was tobacco, which he noted was a culture productive of infinite wretchedness because it depleted the soil of its minerals. He had enslaved men, women, and children working sun up to sundown for 18 months to ready the tobacco for market. And then he later switched to wheat because the tobacco just didn't really work out very well. So after his death in 1826, his grandson, Francis Epps, inherited Poplar Forest. He was not satisfied with it, though, because Jefferson only used it occasionally. It did not need to be a conventional house, but for someone trying to make a home and raise a family, the modern features that Jefferson had in there just kind of worked against it. I think Francis's wife mentioned the roof leaking in 100 places. So Francis sold the house to a local Cobb's Hutter family in 1825. And so the Hutters made major changes to the house. So you see the roof is not as ornate as Jefferson had it. The skylight is gone. The dining room ceiling was lowered so they could make a second floor. I think they had 11 children, so they needed some extra bedrooms. So they needed to accommodate their large family. And the wing of offices was torn down, and a new kitchen and smokehouse was put in its place. And from what I understand, the new kitchen was not as modern as Jefferson's kitchen. It was not as efficient as Jefferson's kitchen was. And boxwoods were placed out front. And the Hutter family owned the house until about 1945, when a local Watts family bought the house, and they made their own changes to the house. This was Jefferson's parlor. They also kept the second level in the house. You can see the upstairs. This was that nice big cube room, and now it's just gotten a little smaller. So the Watts, they sold the house in 1975. When they had the house on the market, developers were actually looking at the house for business reasons. I think somebody wanted to make it a bed and breakfast, somebody wanted to make it a restaurant. Fortunately, there was a Dr. Johnson from North Carolina that bought the house and the property, but he did not live in it. He just was holding on to it, hoping somebody would come and buy it and restore it, which happened in 1983. The Corporation for Jefferson's Poplar Forest formed, and they bought the house and started the restoration. So it started with the archaeologists digging for clues while the architects studied Jefferson's notes and plans. If you know Jefferson, he was a massive note taker and writer, very detailed instructions on everything. So the architectural historians were able to pretty much see exactly how Jefferson had built the house. And so they were able to find the original floor of the wing, and were able to recreate the wing of offices from the floor and, of course, Jefferson's notes. And paper mulberry root stains showed exactly where to plant the paper mulberries. And the same with the clump of trees. They found root stains. He had 2 clumps of trees on each side of the north portico, so they were able to find that, and we've got one side of the portico right now with the clumps. And so artifacts also from the slave quarter site and the house were uncovered. A lot of buttons were found at the slave quarter site. Buttons were kind of their fashion statement. That was how they did their latest fashions, was the latest buttons. And then also, this is a piece of the entablature that Jefferson had in the dining room. He had 3 different types of entablatures. And this one is his dining room entablature. And right now, for the archaeologists, the current project is uncovering the original carriage turnaround. They've just uncovered it, and they have plans now to protect it. I think they're going to put like a cement coating over it and then recreate the carriage turnaround. So that should happen this year, next year. It's what they've started to work on. So restoration began in 1986, and it still continues. We are almost finished. It's been 30 years, but we're almost there. The entire interior was gutted, so the team could start from scratch, because they actually have been restoring the house in the same sequence and manner that Jefferson did, and using the same materials as he did in that time. We actually, not we, I'm not doing anything with that. The team, the restoration team, is using historic wood from the property. They're actually using the wood that's on the property to do the woodwork that was done by the enslaved craftsman John Hemmings, who did Monticello, and his apprentices, who were also his nephews, Madison, Eston, and Beverly. They all 3 did all the woodwork in the house. And so our team is restoring the woodwork in the house, which is what their current project is right now. And some of that work is the pine trim and the oak floors, and then the beautiful walnut doors. They're just such a lovely shade of brown. They're gorgeous, and they're all throughout the house. And so the current project that they're working on is the molding and the entablatures, like I had showed you just a few slides ago. So what Poplar Forest does, just as a service to the public, we offer different programs aside from daily guided tours. Hands-on history is for school groups where children can learn. They learn brick making, quill pen writing. They learn archaeology, colonial games, and then they also learn about the tasks of the enslaved community, spinning and weaving, and other things. Our events include, of course, our big July 4th celebration. What better place to spend July 4th than the place of the man that wrote the Declaration of Independence? We have a big celebration. We also have conversations, which is where Jefferson and another historical figure just sit on a stage and they talk. There's a kind of a mediator person asking questions. The audience can ask questions, and it's really interesting. This is George Washington. when he came to visit us at Poplar Forest. We also have 2 naturalization ceremonies a year. We have one on Jefferson's birthday and then one on Constitution Day. And then there's also Legends of the Land, which interprets enslaved community living. And we have so much more events at Poplar Forest. These are just a few of them. Our website is poplarforest.org. If you're interested, if you're down that way and want to see what events we have. We have a wine festival in November. It's always the Saturday before Thanksgiving, and it's wonderful. We usually have about 13, 14 wineries there. So if you're down in Lynchburg around Thanksgiving, come visit. And as the museum shop manager, of course, I have to do a plug for the museum shop. But we do have good books on Poplar Forest. We also have his notes on the state of Virginia, which was his only published book, and he wrote that at Poplar Forest. We don't have an online website, but if any of these books look interesting to you, I have my card if anybody'd like to take it, and you can call us and we can mail you the book. The bigger one right here is kind of a very comprehensive book, kind of on Jefferson's history and his history with Poplar Forest. The smaller ones, one is on the archaeology of Poplar Forest, and then this other smaller one, they all are called Poplar Forest, so I'm not sure how to designate. This private place one it has a lot of pictures, has a really nice group of pictures in it, and that's more about the restoration, if anybody is interested in that. We also have a local woodworker who uses our tulip poplar wood and makes beautiful chests and paperweights, just nice wood products from that. There's also a Kentucky coffee tree that fell down from the property that they also take wood from that. And also we support local artisans. This is one, Nina Havery. She's made that lovely scarf for us, exclusive to Poplar Forest. And of course, I'm wearing our latest scarf. It has tulip poplars on it. And she also does fossilized pottery. We also sell stuff from a local blacksmith. We just like to be a part of the community, and support our neighbors as well. So Poplar Forest, we are open 7 days a week, 10 to 4. Tours go out. We have guided tours of the house all during the 7 days. On the weekends, we also do enslaved community tours that will take you through the property, talking about the enslaved community as well. So I am done with my presentation after 15 minutes, so we have a lot of time if anybody has any questions. Yes?
Is it organized and managed by a not-for-profit, or is it a...
We are a nonprofit. It's the Corporation for Jefferson's Poplar Forest.
Okay. Corporation just isn't something you usually hear, so I...
Yeah. Yes?
I know you said you have cards. Do you like have a brochure that you brought with you, or?
No, I do not have any brochures. I meant to, and I didn't.
Oh, so you said that there's conversations with historic figures. Mm-hmm. That means, so that happens every day, or often?
It's once a year. It's always in April. Mm-hmm. Once a year in April.
And what's like the nicest time to do that? What's like the nicest time to come there that would beat you crazy? For months.
Because we're small, we're never really that crazy. But probably our busiest times would be in the summer, where parents are bringing their kids. Fall is pretty slow, except October, because people come to see the leaves change. So we're pretty busy then, but spring and fall would be the best time. Yes, sir.
So given all the attention and scrutiny that Thomas Jefferson continues to have and the continued historic research on him, are there regular get-togethers about handling questions from people that come through the museum in terms of being on the same page, or how does that
Yes.
play out?
Yeah, our interpretation department will, especially with Sally Hemmings, when all that come out. She never came to Poplar Forest with them that we know of, so for a while, we were able to just say that, but then as it got more, talked about more, people started asking more questions, so our administration we have a statement that, yes, that Poplar Forest believes that Jefferson, did father her children. So, yeah, things like that we do. They'll always, this is the statement you're going to make for whatever, issues or things come up. Yes, ma'am.
I found it interesting. The reason I came is I'd never heard about Poplar Forest.
Yeah, a lot of people.
And I've been to Monticello, several times. And
Right.
what is the relationship between your nonprofit and theirs? And how do you, I see that as an opportunity to move forward with greater awareness.
We do too.
But they don't.
There is no relationship with
Really?
Monticello.
Wow. And we're,
I mean, individual departments will meet, we'll talk, communicate with other departments, but as far as the two, we are two separate entities, and we would like to do more.
to me, it's, if you're gonna tell a story, you have to tell the whole story.
Right.
And so is the reticence, sounds like it's on their part?
Yes. And I do say that honestly. If you go on a tour to Monticello, you will not hear Poplar Forest.
No.
Unless a person from Poplar Forest is on the tour and make it known to the tour guide, because that's what I did.
I was gonna say, you do that.
And then when we got in the octagonal bedroom, he said, oh, and there's another octagonal, house down the street.
What's the distance between the two properties?
It's an hour and a half. It's, 90 miles. It's not that far. Although it took him 2 days by horseback and 3 by carriage to get to Poplar Forest. Yes.
And both of the properties have landmark status, is that right?
Yes.
So when it comes to this, I know it says that the public transit, do tour companies usually stop at your place or not usually?
They do. We have a lot of group tours.
Oh, tour groups, do they, a lot of them stop at your place? Do you know which ones by any chance or?
Not right offhand. I don't.
Okay.
Easy to look up on Google, I think.
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
Yeah. And then I'll get you.
Was there anything in the restoration process that was a little bit, I know he took a lot of notes in the process, but was there anything that was particularly challenging to figure out or understand or interpret?
I know the roof was a little challenging. Actually, the roof, it wasn't necessarily challenging as far as putting it together, but, Jefferson had problems with it leaking, so we had problems with it, the exact same problems. I don't really know, but I do have our our architectural historian's card, because I figure people might have questions for people things that I don't know. Travis McDonald is the one that, he's been there since the beginning. If you'd like his card, I can give you that. You can email him. He'd be happy to respond.
Do you have any of the original furnishings from the original house?
We
now?
don't, because when Jefferson, when he died, because he was in such debt, a lot of his belongings from Poplar Forest were sold off. They were auctioned off. There is one table that Monticello has. That's ours. I really don't mean to put Monticello down. I'm just stating facts. But I don't think they have plans to give it back. We do have the original dining room table in our collections, but we have a replica of it in the house. There's really no furnishings in the house right now anyway. So, yes, ma'am.
So during the restoration process, has there been any work to implement some of the inventions that Jefferson put in the house? Did he do similar things like in Monticello, where he had his own inventions in place to make the house more livable for him that he did at Poplar Forest? And is that being done for the restoration too?
I don't think he had as many things at Poplar Forest. Poplar Forest, yeah, it was just, it wasn't as, he was just very simple. I think Ellen, one of his granddaughters, mentions just that the furnishings, they were elegant, but they were simple. So I think he was kind of like a minimalist at Poplar Forest. But the terrace roof, which was his invention, we have that.
What was the square, it looks small, what was the square footage of it, or is the square footage?
2,000 square feet.
That's it?
Yeah, 2,000 on top, 2,000 on the bottom. Yeah, it is a small house,
Yeah.
but it's
bigger than it
lovely.
looks.
It's beautiful.
In person it is bigger than it looks.
Well, yeah, like, I was expecting that number to be smaller, just looking at the pictures, and that's part of the design of the architecture,
Right.
is to play with the proportions.
Right.
Have things look grander or smaller than they are.
Yeah. See, you architecture people need to come.
Given his love for gardening, did he have a plan for the landscape area at all?
No, just the clumps of trees on each side of the north portico, the paper mulberries. On the south lawn, he did line the south lawn with some shrubs. And in the middle of the carriage turnaround, I think was a chestnut rose, maybe, but he did not have any plans for, big, lush, beautiful, ornate gardens. I mean, again, I think it's just because Poplar Forest was just a very simple place for him.
Did he have a large slave community to do all of the work as far as the tobacco growing?
Yeah, at Poplar Forest, he had about 100 slaves there, and they lived at Bear Creek Plantation, which was about 2 miles, and they would have to walk the 2 miles to work on the tobacco. It definitely was a working plantation, and he made some income from it, but yeah. And then he offered, the way that the south lawn got dug out was he offered the slaves on their own work time, on their free time, that he would pay them 2 bits or 12.5 cents per square foot to dig out the south lawn. And there was only record of one slave, Phil Hubbard, that did that. May have been more, but only one that we know of that was paid. And it took him 2.5 years to dig it out and create the mounds with it.
You get any public funding or how?
No, it's all donations. We get grants for projects.
What are their grants through like the state councils or are they private foundation grants?
They're mainly private foundation grants, yeah.
How about, do you have a friends group? Is there a friends group that kind of fundraises as well?
No, I don't think so.
So it's all through memberships, is that?
It's all through memberships and donations. Mm-hmm. And I also have the development.
The state doesn't support you in the tourism board or anything?
No, ma'am. No.
You on their map?
I don't know.
I mean,
I really don't.
they're promoting history and the rich
Right.
thing and,
We
this
should
is a
be.
stop, folks.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
There are actually 2 questions. One is, were there any buildings on the land before Jefferson built this,
There was an overseer's house on the property, because it was a working plantation also before he inherited it. And actually, that overseer's house is where Jefferson and his family stayed when Tarleton came after him during the Revolutionary War. Came up to Charlottesville, and he escaped like 10 minutes before Tarleton got to Monticello. And Poplar Forest is where he came to and stayed in the overseer's house. And then that's when he wrote the notes on state of Virginia during that time. Yeah.
and how big is the property now? Versus
We own 617 acres. We have some of the some of the houses, and we're in the smack dab in the middle of a neighborhood. And so we own some of the rental houses, and as houses come for sale, we try to buy them. There's a golf course on the property now that we own, we lease it out. So we do have a little extra income from those. I actually live in one of the rental houses, and it's actually the yard is where the brick kilns were found, where they made the bricks to build the house. So it's kind of neat. Yeah. And did you have two questions?
I got property and any houses beforehand.
Okay.
Was the main roof accessible then by the Jeffersons? Could they get up to the top of the?
Yes, through his, if anybody's been to Monticello and the alcove bed, or, well, you saw the picture, the alcove bed has kind of a closet above it. In his room, there was an access to the roof through that little closet area. And he would go up there, and that's where he would survey, because he also did surveying as well.
So the mid-19th century kitchen, was that demolished to make way for the restored service wing, or was it in a
Yeah,
different?
the Hutter family demolished the whole wing of offices and then created those two buildings. They put those up.
And then are those now gone and replaced by the restored?
Yeah, that is the restored wing that you saw. Did you want to see it? I can go back.
No, I was just trying to figure out if they were in the same location.
Yeah, they are, because the archaeologists had found the floor, which really helped know exactly where to place the wing. Anybody else?
So,
Go ahead.
sorry, so how extensive is the staff, or what's the ratio of like paid staff to volunteers, or how do you?
There is about 17 of us, paid staff, full-time staff. We have maybe 2 part-time staff, and then the rest is volunteers. Volunteers do all the tours. One part-time staff will do tours, but it's mainly volunteers. Yes, ma'am.
So what kind of full-time staff do you have? What are the, you know, like the
We
head?
have the development director, development coordinator. We have Wayne Ganaway, who is, he's the director of interpretation, programs, grants, kind of a hodgepodge. He just kind of does a lot of things. And then there's the manager of programs and education, who oversees the volunteers and plans events, and then the event coordinator, who actually coordinates the events, and of course our president, CEO, and then I manage the museum shop, and then I have about 3 people that work in the museum shop as well. And of course the archaeologist, there's about 4, and then about 4 on the restoration team.
And how about the grounds?
As far as groundskeeping,
Yeah.
we don't have, it's the supervisor, the restoration supervisor is our maintenance person also. And we have people that come mow the yard. I mean, right now it's just mainly grass, so there's not a lot to keep up. I think
So at Monticello, he had all his own industry set up as part of the plantation system, so like weaving, blacksmithing, all of that. Is that something that occurred here as well? And
he
is there
did.
evidence of it?
Yeah, there's evidence of a blacksmith shop not too far from the house. And I know that the ladies or the women they did the spinning and the weaving. Kate Hubbard was the spinner, and she would teach the young girls spinning.
Your annual visitation?
We get about 25 to 30,000 people a year. If you compare that to Monticello's like 300,000 a year. Anybody else?
Do you have some kind of a champion? Sometimes it appears on the board of directors, or somebody who is kind of like the face that's out there, or the PR kind of.
I don't know that we have any one specific person. All of our board members are very, they love the place, and they definitely get our name out there and try to reach, people that they know could donate really well to us. So I think all the board members are very, very active. Anybody else? Well, thank you. I'm sorry, it's very short.